So I'm going to talk to you guys about the 5 milestones of the luxury listing secrets that will set you financially free and put you on a radically different trajectory in your real estate business.
Great.
Milestone number one, I shifted 20% of my time to luxury sales, even though I had never sold an expensive home. I was bogged down with selling cheaper homes. I didn't see any possible end in sight. So I decided that Fridays were now going to become financial freedom Fridays. And on Fridays, I focused on getting luxury listings. And the reason that I decided to shift 20% of my effort to that is because, as a school teacher, you're taught that 80-20 principle, right? Well, now I know that that's not true. It's a much smaller number actually, but I'm glad I didn't know that because I don't know how I would have focused 7% of my time. So 20% of my time on luxury sales. So I decided on Fridays that is all that I was going to do. If it wasn't important and it wasn't urgent, then I was going to focus on the wealthy on Fridays. So again, I was having to read books. That is how I got all of my knowledge. And we didn't have any luxury agents in my Century 21 office that I was at. I didn't even know there was a Century 21 Fine Homes and Estates division until I went to my first convention. That's why convention's important. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But these are some of the books that I stumbled upon. Sex and Real Estate, which was a fascinating book and very humorous. I don't know how much it would hold up today, but it basically talks about how we go through different stages. So it talks about the bachelor pad, it talks about the family home, it talks about the empty nester's home. Anyway, it was a fun read to say the least. And then Dr. Thomas Stanley, who wrote the book The Millionaire Next Door, he wrote Selling to the Affluent, Marketing to the Affluent, and Selling to the Affluent, Marketing to the Affluent, and I don't know, Connecting with the Affluent. I can't remember the third one. But anyway, I read all three of those books. And he talked very aggressively and very honestly about how if you want to get the wealthy's attention, then you've got to basically do them favors, right? You've got to be in proximity with them and you have to do things that help promote their business very often before they'll promote yours. And of course, the book that we talked about last week, as we talked about young Sheldon, How to Win Friends and Influence People, incredibly important book in my development. Think and Grow Rich, which I think is the first book that everybody should be required to read as soon as they can read sentences. And then the book Awaken the Giant Within, which is the book that gave me the guts to actually go into real estate. So those are five of the books that were very, very instrumental. And as you see, I truly blocked my days on Fridays for exactly what I was going to do. So I had just moved into the Dominion when I made this decision. So I went to the Dominion Starbucks. I did follow-up calls only to wealthy people. I called expired luxury listings. I went to chamber lunches every single solitary Friday. They had this chamber lunch that was kind of an unofficial chamber event Fridays at Piatti Restaurant, the one there off of Bassey Road. And every single Friday, that's where I was. And then I would connect with new contacts via social media. And again, this was before Facebook, but we did have LinkedIn, if memory serves. I think that was the only social media that I was a part of. And then I'd go to happy hour at Stoneworks, which at the time was the place where all the wealthy in San Antonio went for happy hour. So what did I do? I forced myself into proximity right away. And when I did that, my entire life changed. I will tell you, after the very first Friday, I was hooked. I thought, you know what? I might have been born poor, but I've done the right things to pull myself up, and I'm making changes to my life. And so this was a big game changer for me when I actually set my schedule to make sure that I was focused on that. Then I joined the Rotary, and the Dominion had a Rotary. They were founding a Rotary right there in San Antonio. I believe that it was founded in 2004, 2005, pretty soon after I moved there. I joined the Chamber of Commerce. That was the first organization that I joined when I first opened my Century 21 franchise. I didn't have any wealthy connections, so I had to go where they were. And here's what I have found out about the wealthy is that for the most part, they are go-givers. They want to be involved in all kinds of different charity works. They want to go deep inside their community. So what I found is that by joining these organizations where I was hanging out with wealthier people, it was feeding a lot of my other needs as well. Again, I was a former school teacher, so I felt like I was giving back. I felt like I was serving. And what I found is that the more you have, the more that you can give. And that was a big game changer for me as well. I saw that the affluent were the first ones to open up their wallets whenever somebody needed something. And I found that very inspiring and very motivating. So, terribly important life lesson as well. So, instantly, just by being a part of these groups, I was connected to successful and wealthy people. And immediately, life was a lot more fun. So, I encourage you, the first two places for most people to check out is going to be a Rotary or a Chamber of Commerce, unless you know of a different organization within your community. Like in where I live in Palm Coast, it's the Tiger Bay Club. So, if you need any help tracking down those kind of groups and those kind of charities or where the wealthy are, then you're going to want to reach out to the wealthy people that you know in your community and ask those questions. So we'll give some scripts for that as well. And then, of course, as we talked about last week, when the student was ready, the teacher appeared. So once I made the decision to do luxury sales, guess what? I met my luxury mentor, and it happened at warp speed. So I set an intention, and it goes back to exactly what Curtis was talking about earlier. The who magically appeared, and I'm very grateful for that. And then somebody gave me the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I began to understand the difference between being self-employed as a real estate agent to being a business owner. And I began to shift my mindset, and I began to spend more time working on my business instead of in my business. And when you do that, again, it's a big shift in mindset. And as soon as you make that shift, your life becomes a lot easier because suddenly you're focused on the big picture instead of on the day to day. My good friend Earl, who would be another really great guest speaker. I'm actually got a meeting with him at 1:30 today. He's to my knowledge, our top business broker with eXp Realty. And what he taught me is that you want to set your business up as though you're going to sell it. You might never sell it. More power to you. But if you set it up with the intention of selling it, then what are you doing with every decision? You are saying, well, what can I do to be completely irrelevant to the growth of my business? And again, that goes back to the who's. So, anyway, more on that later. And what I found is that I could suddenly have predictable demand generation. So when I needed more clients, I knew what I needed to do to ramp up. If I needed to slow things down, I could turn the faucet down as well. And we'll talk about ways to handle growth a little bit later in the presentation. So you've got to have a process for all of this because we don't rise to the level of our ambitions. We fall to the level of our systems. And us real estate agents are really bad at systems. We want to be out talking to people. So we have to hire people to set up those systems. Again, that goes back to the who. So, okay, next secret. I researched and targeted luxury listings. Historically, luxury listings take longer to sell and they're much more likely to expire. So I reached out to them by phone, Facebook, when Facebook finally came into the world, LinkedIn, and direct mail. Now, I was early to direct mail. I started sending out postcards basically in 2000. And I will tell you, those postcards were so important to my business. And I was doing really cheesy stuff too. I think now about, my goodness, if I'd done high quality stuff, how much more money I would have made. But when I started, my stuff was pretty doggone cheesy. I literally bought postcard templates on the clearance rack that had little houses at Office Depot, and I ran them off on the copy machine. I mean, it was that low tech, right? I ran free home valuation posts, which of course with KV Core is easy to do, and they're absolutely beautiful. I offered neighborhood updates to everyone. That is why we're teaching you the script that we've been focusing on, where you're looking to get phone numbers, email addresses, and subdivisions of the people that like you, know you, and trust you. Because when you put them on those neighborhood updates, they're seeing your smiling face over and over again. And they're usually seeing it with something that they're really happy and excited about. And my first day of targeting luxury listings, I got an appointment. Okay. Um, Okay, so that's one of the little cool posts that I put to find out what your home's worth. That was one of the most successful things that I did, was posting that that home valuation. This is my little drip campaign that I'm on with Denise, because of course I've just gotten licensed in Florida. So when Denise and I first started working together, I asked her to put me on a drip so that I would know every property that was coming on the market, not only in the condo complex that I live in, but actually anything high end in my entire community. So for the past 2 years or so, I've seen pretty much every home, every condo that's come on the market. And this is one of the first emails that I look at, even though I have no intention of selling my property. And I still get my notifications from my home in the Dominion. And I'll tell you, even though I pray I never move back to San Antonio, it's still one of the first or second emails that I look at every day, because I'm always still curious about what home values are doing in that area. So this is what the little home valuation blurbs look like right now. And like I said, this is something that you can post for free through your KV Core. You can type in your zip code, you can type in a subdivision, you could type in a school district, anything that you want. And this is one of the things that people click on, because everybody is curious about the value of their home. I mean, it's just a natural thing that people wonder about. So the other really cool thing about this is, what does it say? It says enter your address to start. So you type in your address, 200 Ocean Crest Drive, apartment 612, right? Well, and then it asks for your email address to get sent the report and your phone number. Well, guess what? Even if you put a fake email address, even if you put a fake phone number, I still get a notification of the property address that was put in there. So if I'm highly ambitious or don't have anything else going on, I could put a listing package together and go knock on their door. I can very easily on social media find out where almost anybody lives, right? We can certainly do that through the tax records. So there are ways to find people. So even if they don't give you a real email address, guess what? You know where they live. It's really awesome. Okay, secret number 4, I hung out where they hung out. I knew that they were not going to come to me, so I went to them. You are infinitely better to go to the most expensive restaurant in town and order water and an appetizer than you are to go to Taco Cabana, as we have in San Antonio, and get like the full meal deal and, a margarita. So you want to go where the wealthy people are. And if you are going to go to Taco Cabana, go to the most expensive Taco Cabana. There's one right across the street from the Dominion, right? Go to the ones in Alamo Heights. Go to the high end. If you don't have the money to go to an expensive restaurant, eat beforehand and go get a glass of water and sit at the bar, or take your family, whatever it takes, guys. You want to be in proximity. The reason that Dave and I joined Tony Robbins Platinum Partners, which was $80,000 plus another $150,000 in 1 year of travel. The reason Dave and I made that commitment was for this secret right here, to get into proximity with people that were playing at a much, much higher level. Because here's what Dave and I found out. We had been extremely busy building our real estate businesses, right? Both of us had been in real estate for, goodness, almost 20 years by that point, more than 20 years by that point. Most of the people that I knew were real estate agents, right? That was the vast majority of the people that I knew. And what I understood is that I had to get into proximity with people that were making money in different ways, people that were living a different life, people that were traveling, in private jets, people that were buying $20 million apartment complexes. And let me tell you, this investment has paid off in ways that you cannot begin to imagine. The apartment complexes I've been able to invest in with this group alone have vastly paid me head and shoulders above anything that I ever paid to be a part of this group. So not only did I have the most fun I could ever have hanging out with cool and fascinating people, I've gotten all my money back and got that money back pretty doggone quickly in spades. So you got to go where they are. I got involved in the Make-A-Wish Foundation in San Antonio. That was a place where a lot of very, very wealthy people really poured in their time and their money and their energy. And guess what? I went all in. I did major fundraising for them. I did lots of ticket sales. I did everything that I could do. I got on the board for the major fundraiser. I actually got on that board, and that put me in sitting at a table with the wife of one of the wealthiest people in the city of San Antonio. So what you want to do is you want to really focus on where these people are and you want to hang out where they are. And then you need to come and have a servant's heart when you're there. Let me tell you, you want to dazzle the wealthy, you be the hardest working person in the charity of their choice. They will remember you forever. They will respect you forever, and you'll get lots and lots of rewards, and they won't all be financial rewards. You'll feel good inside. And as my mom will say, you'll get extra stars in your crown. So secret number 5, I worked harder on myself than I did in my business. Let me tell you, we're going to talk a little bit later. You know what? I'm going to save that for next week, that point for next week. But here's what I can tell you. There's not a lot of things that we can control in this world. But one thing you can control is what time you get up in the morning and what you feed your brain every day. You maybe can't control everything, but most of us can at least control our mornings. When you're driving to work, are you listening to the radio? Are you listening to Howard Stern? Is Howard Stern still out there? Are you listening to YouTube videos on how to sell more luxury homes? I mean, guys, you're so blessed. You're breaking into luxury when there's bazillions of hours of free information. You don't have to buy any books. You don't have to invest in any courses. All that you have to do is go to YouTube, type in how to be a luxury real estate agent. You'll have thousands and thousands of hours of views. And if you want some recommendations on that, feel free to reach out to me as well. The great news is that EXP has some of the best material, and we're about to talk about that. Now, when I started making money, I brought on a buyer's agent. I hired a local assistant, which was a Greek tragedy. Out of desperation, I hired a virtual assistant, and that is when my business exploded. Grace and Fish, aka Chris, aka Fish, have radically and completely, totally transformed my business. They have skill sets that I will never have. They have a patience level that I will never have, and they brought order to my chaos. A little over a year ago, we brought on Louisa, who's the one that does all these beautiful PowerPoints. Can we have a big hand for Louisa, Chris, and Grace? Absolutely. And because they've got skill sets that I didn't have. Now, here's the mistake that most people make when hiring. They hire somebody that they like. They hire somebody that's similar to them. Guess what? When I hire people that have the same personality that I have, they don't want to do the same stuff that I don't want to do. You got to hire somebody that is your polar opposite. So anyway, we should probably do it. Maybe Chris and Grace, if you'll remind me, we'll do a session, maybe a bonus session one day on bringing on VAs. And then finally, I built a massive team and I took over my city. And finally, I added leverage. I had, guys, let me tell you how big this thing got. I had the #1 real estate team in San Antonio, Texas, which is the 7th largest city in the US. San Antonio is literally bigger than Dallas. I had the #1 team in the city for 6 years. I had the #1 Century 21 team in the nation back when Century 21 was #1 for 7 years. When I joined Keller Williams, I was top luxury listing agent from my office. From very, very, very humble beginnings, guys, I built it. I built it big. I built it fast. And then I exited 6 weeks before the market crashed. So anyway, leverage. That's when I realized it wasn't about how hard I was rowing. So I'd like to actually play you a little story. It's about 3 minutes long. Will you guys indulge me for 3 minutes? Is that okay?
Pick the deck stacked in our favor, right? And so the last one is one that I learned from Uncle Warren, right? Which is, he tells this story that has always stuck with me. He said, when I was at Columbia Business School, he had his closest friend at Columbia. And they were kind of equivalent in every way, super smart, really hardworking, et cetera. And when they graduated, they went their separate ways. He went to get into, private equity and investing, et cetera. And his friend went into the steel business and worked really hard, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward 30 years, his friend did decently well. He, rose up in the company. Steel's a hard business. They can't pay as well, et cetera. This was an American Steel, was kind of in turmoil, et cetera. And two guys, same IQ-ish, same work ethic. Warren becomes an ultra billionaire. The other guy is just a normal dude. And he said, that's when I learned how important it was, that it wasn't about how hard you row, but the boat you're in. And so a lot of us are rowing in the wrong boat, and we're rowing as hard as we can, but we're actually in the wrong vehicle. And so when we're trying to pick the market that we're going after, you don't want to pick steel in the US when he was graduating from college. A good friend of mine had a newspaper business. He was a SaaS dude from YC, slick back hair, the whole thing, looked fancy. And he was like, dude, we're not growing anymore. He's like, I've changed the offer. I've got I've got my sales team. He's doing all this stuff. I was like, bro, do you want me to say it? He was like, what do you mean? I was like, newspaper's shrinking 25% a year, compounded against you. Not even like neutral, like negative compounding. People are like 25% a year returns. Like do that for 10 years the other way, very bad. And so he's like, even though we're gaining market share, I was like, yeah, but the market's this big, right? And so the thing is, there's an old VC saying, venture capital saying, he said, when a great manager meets a bad market, the market wins, right? And so a lot of us are we're rowing in the wrong boat. You're pursuing people who suck. If you go to places or you go to markets that are growing, you grow by default. There are some people, this is the nice thing that we have is that we all just went through COVID, whatever time ago it was. Who here saw a big increase in their business? Who here saw a big decrease in their business? Well, good for you guys, for everybody else. The point is that you actually got to see in real time the difference between markets. Like the market was actually behind you and it got so much easier. And so if we have the ability to decide what we're going to sell and to whom, we might as well stack the deck, right? So number one, why nailing your offer is the most important thing that you can do to make more money. Number two, why selling to the right people makes more money. Did I make that point? Cool? All right, number three, here's why you should charge a lot of money for it, AKA the right price. One of my favorite quotes from Dan Kennedy, charge as much as you can without cracking a smile.
So obviously, everyone knows that marketing and networking works. Just look at how many top agents spend hours at the country club and civic events. That's why you're smart to deploy it in your business. Learn the exact secrets that we are using to crush luxury sales and in the process become a local celebrity. So if you haven't seen the movie Caddyshack, or if it's been a while, I'm going to encourage you to go back. It is consistently ranked one of the top 10 funniest movies in all of history. And even if you're not a big golfer, I can promise you, it has held up pretty doggone well. But it's all about country club. It's all about country club lifestyle. Let me tell you guys, me being a member of the country club has never cost me a penny. I have made millions and millions and millions of dollars because I was a member of my local country club. And for you young whippersnappers, pretty much every country club out there has like a young executive program. So that's how I joined the Dominion. Joining the Dominion was $35,000, but if you were 35 or less, they would take $5,000 a year for 7 years. And that's what I did. Okay. So there's some great programs out there. And there's a lot of country clubs right now that will cut you some closed door deals as well. And maybe you can't join the most expensive country club in the city, but maybe you can join, a lot of the regional clubs, the public country clubs, the public clubs out there have private memberships. So it's a public course, but you can join at a discounted rate and be a part of their golf tournaments and things like that. And if you don't play golf, learn, you know. I mean, you can resist it as long as you want, but everybody should learn how to play golf if you're a real estate agent, that's for sure. So